Dave Lerner, Venture Studio, welcome. We've got the author of The Lean Startup here. He's trying to make a science out of the art of starting new companies. It's #2 on the New York Times bestseller list. I want to welcome Eric Ries to the show. Eric, thanks for coming.
Hey, thanks for having me.
What is the Lean Startup movement?
We call it Lean Startup by analogy to something called Lean Manufacturing, which is a movement that began in Japan with the Toyota production system and was all about the creation of more efficient, higher quality stuff. But the problem that entrepreneurs face is a little bit different. We're often building the wrong stuff. We actually wind up building products that customers don't want. And so if we're building something that nobody wants, why would we be proud of having done it on time, on budget, with high quality? It doesn't make sense. So we're a movement dedicated to helping entrepreneurs figure out efficiently if we're even building the right thing in the first place.
What are the key principles of this methodology?
The first is that entrepreneurship is management. Entrepreneurship is not just about having a good idea. It's not just about building a great product. It is fundamentally about building an organization. But it's not the same kind of management we learned in the 20th century, which was all about stable organizations and doing things very similar to what had been done in the past. Entrepreneurship is management under conditions of extreme uncertainty, when we don't know who the customer is, we don't know what the product's going to be, we don't know what's going to work. So the most important thing that entrepreneurs can do is learn how to build a sustainable business. And that's really point #2, which is that learning is our unit of progress, not just making stuff.
Let me ask you about your concept of vanity metrics.
Sure.
We see a lot of these. What do you mean by that?
Vanity metrics are the numbers you put in your press release so that when your competitors read about it, they feel bad about themselves. So you want to get the biggest possible number, like we got 10 million messages sent on our platform yesterday. And the great thing about vanity metrics is they make your competitors feel bad, but they don't actually give away any information about your company. If we had 10 million messages sent, that might mean that 10 million people tried our product one time and then churned out. Or it could mean that one guy loves our product times 10 million. It doesn't tell you anything about how many customers do we really have, how engaged are they, how is that number growing and changing over time. And the problem is what happens when we start to use those vanity metrics to run our company. And that's when we get into trouble.
You have something called the engines of growth, which actually describe what business you're in so you know what kind of metrics you should be paying attention to. Please elaborate for our benefit.
Most entrepreneurs think that great products just grow on their own and that growth happens by magic, but that's not true. Growth happens because a very specific process is working out in the market. And these processes, I call them engines because they work like an internal combustion engine. Each rev of the engine kind of gives the motive force for the next round. So this is the pattern of what we call sustainable growth, where every new customer comes from the action of past customers. And that can happen in one of 3 ways. The first engine of growth we call viral, which is past customers are actually causing new customers to sign up because they're infecting them with our product's idea. In the sticky or engagement engine of growth, the new customers are the old customers coming back through some kind of a subscription, network effect, lock-in, some reason why they basically can't leave your product. And in the third engine of growth, what we call paid, it's the revenue that we generate from past customers that allows us to get new customers by reinvesting in advertising or any other form of customer acquisition.
Who in a company should be paying attention to these metrics?
Every single person in the company. That's the hardest thing about entrepreneurship. We're used to thinking if I go work for a company, I look at my business card and it says engineer, and my business card used to say chief technology officer, and I used to think that meant I focus on the technology and I leave this metrics stuff to some other bozo. But the truth is, if you're in a startup, you need to rip that business card up right now, because every single person in a startup has only one job description, and that job description is do whatever it takes to make the company succeed. And the only way to make a startup succeed is to be constantly learning and testing what things that we do actually influence customer behavior for the better.
Let's dig a little deeper. How do you get everybody on the team intimate with the metrics? Do you do morning meetings, evening meetings? How do you do that?
The most important thing is actually accounting. The accounting system that we use are at the heart of how we drive accountability in all of our companies. If we change the accounting system so that every project, every person, every employee is judged based on, hey, how did you influence the actionable metrics of our customers? If that's how we hold them accountable, that's how we promote and fire people, then all of a sudden people will have an incredible incentive. Every employee has this new incentive to get really intimately familiar with those numbers.
What would be great is to hear a story or two about entrepreneurs that have read your book and has changed their trajectory as entrepreneurs.
I was on stage at a conference on the book launch, and I met one of the founders of Instagram. And if you'd asked me before the conference, what does Instagram have to do with Lean Startup, I would have said nothing. I don't know. Good for them that they had success. No, I don't know their story at all. And he told an amazing story about how they had been working on a previous product that wasn't getting traction. Then 2 years ago, they came to a workshop that I gave, one of my early workshops on Lean Startup. In the workshop, had the epiphany that they were going to have to pivot, that what they were doing wasn't working, and the thing that they eventually pivoted into was Instagram. So these ideas had an important impact on their success. And it was so great.
What happens when, another generation goes by of entrepreneurs that are using Lean Startup techniques? How does that change our ecosystem? What does that look like?
Well, I hope fundamentally what it means is that if you look on average to the energy we invest in new product creation and in startups as a whole, we won't waste quite so much of people's time. Because right now, the way our industry works, we are wasting people's time on an industrial scale. It's terrible because so many people are laboring in ventures that are doomed. And if we could even shift that needle a little bit, I think it will mean a lot for our global prosperity. If you think about what's happening in our economy, routine work doesn't need people anymore. So everyone always talks about the manufacturing crisis in America. You never hear anybody talk about the manufactured goods crisis, like, oh, I can't get enough stuff. You go into stores and they're empty. No, we're manufacturing more stuff in America than at any time in history. The problem is we don't have as many manufacturing jobs because we've gotten so good at it. So if we really want to take advantage of these new tools, these new technologies, this new world, we're going to have to retrain people to be in the creativity business, in the entrepreneurship business, and that's going to have a profound impact.
Eric, this has been great. Thank you so much. Folks, the Lean Startup, check it out. It's been a lot of fun. Thanks, Eric.
Thank you.
Venture Studio in association with Mashable is brought to you by Square One Bank.